Thanks again for tuning into Moonshine Gaming. Today we're going to be discussing the top 10 rarest and most expensive original Microsoft Xbox games. Now, as per usual, we have a few parameters we're going to be following for this list. We won't be including not for resale, homebrews, or case variants. And we also won't be including big box collector's editions, so the big box Steel Battalion game controller combo will not be on this list. We'll be using North American complete in-box pricing for this list. Now what that means is the game case, game instruction manual, and any inserts, if they were included, will be included in the prices that we give on this list. So without further ado, let's get into it. First up, we've got the Guy game. This was a game show style trivia game that was released in 2004. The Guy game at its very core is a trivia game. Questions are asked, points are awarded to players that answer correctly, and the player with the most points at the end wins. There is a twist though. They implement drinking games and topless women into the whole ordeal. The game consists of 4 rounds. The first round consists of players answering trivia questions, and on top of giving answers, the questions will also be posed to women in-game who will also attempt to answer the questions. You will have to guess whether the women in-game will answer correctly or not. And if you're right, you'll be awarded some bonus points. Also, if the women in-game answer the question wrong, they'll actually flash the camera. At first this will be censored, but eventually you'll be able to use your bonus points to watch the scenes uncensored. The second round will have you playing a mini-game. The third round is basically the same as the first, and the fourth round is a physical challenge between the girls in-game, and you'll also have to guess who wins the competition. There was some controversy with this game, as one of the recorded women stated she was not informed that the footage was going to be used for a video game, and also, she was only 17 years old at the age of recording. Gil. This made the Guy game illegal to own and sell in many countries, obviously. So a lawsuit prohibited the game to be sold with the footage of the underage girl in it. This is a unique collection piece with a really weird history. This game's worth $95. Next up, we've got Curse: The Eyes of Isis. This is a survival horror game that was released in 2003. This was made by British developer Asylum Entertainment, and they kind of threw everyone for a loop when they released a survival horror game, because their last few releases were games like Powerpuff Girls Chemical Extraction and Teletubbies Play with the Teletubbies on the PS1. Asylum followed the Resident Evil formula, but with an Egyptian theme. The game takes place in 1890, and you play as archaeologist Victoria and her friend Darian. You're investigating the theft of the Eye of Isis statue, and end up discovering that the museum and surrounding area has been covered in fog and evil beings and entities. In true survival horror style, you'll be fighting enemies, solving puzzles, searching for items, keys, weapons, and health power-ups. The game has some issues though. Firstly, you're normally facing the camera without being able to see what's in front of you. You'll constantly be running into unexpected enemies. Also, the puzzles can be mind-numbingly easy. Fortunately, the Xbox version is the best way to play this game. They fixed a few bugs and also fixed issues with the enemy AI, as they were prominent in the PC version. This is a solid tribute to Resident Evil and has a great story and is definitely worth a play for survival horror fans. This one's worth $104. Next up, we've got Obscure, another survival horror game. This game was released in 2004. Side note, this game is also included in our top 10 rarest and most expensive PS2 games video, and if you'd like to check that out, you can click the link at the top right. This story is based around a ragtag crew of high school kids who are searching for their missing friend after being locked inside their school overnight. You're working your way through rooms looking for items that can be combined into tools and weapons, also collecting keys, moving furniture, and manually saving. There are a few unique mechanics that are used in this game. Each character has specific abilities that can help you, but none are actually needed in order to progress in the game. For the most part, you work in a 2-person team and can rotate back and forth between characters, or order your partner to do specific things. I think it would have been cool if they forced you to use the character abilities in order to move forward in the game, but you didn't need to. There's also a co-op mode. Unfortunately, there was no online support, and I think that also would have been a cool addition. This is a pretty good survival horror game, but feels like more of a Resident Evil clone than anything, without a true identity of its own. This one's worth $106. Next up, we've got Stubbs the Zombie. This is a third-person action-adventure game with a horror theme, which was released in 2005. The game takes place in the 1950s, and you'll take control of Stubbs. Stubbs is a zombie, and you'll be the one initiating the undead infection. You'll eat brains and turn your victims into zombie followers, which you will eventually be able to control. The gameplay is simple enough. You basically just kill everything. The moveset is great. You can fart stun enemies, use your head as a bowling ball, you can rip off enemy arms and use them as a weapon, but my favorite is being able to use your hand to control enemies. You can remove your hand and maneuver it to enemies and take control of them with your amputated hand. This is also the only way in the game that you can access firearms. One of the most frustrating parts of the game is that when you're controlling Stubbs, he walks really slow. Obviously, he's a zombie, but the enemies with guns will back away from you faster than you can actually walk. They can also take up to 4 melee attacks to actually take down. I wish they would have added a sprint button into the game. I think this would have helped with that issue. Also, the Xbox version supports a co-op mode, and the PC version does not, so that's a plus for the Xbox version. The art and sound design is fantastic. Because there isn't much of a plot, this game is an amazing pick-up-and-play game, even if it's only for a few minutes. This game's worth $107. Next up, we've got Spikeout Battle Street. This is a beat-em-up that was released in 2005. It's an arcade-style game which offers a single-player story mode and local and online multiplayer. The story mode's plot is very similar to The Warriors, if you've ever seen that movie or played the game. The whole game feels like a turf war, where you have to battle it out with the different gangs around the city, and all the different gangs have their own identities. I think the game wanted to steer clear of any controversy, as it never actually uses the word gang and always refers to the different gangs as teams or groups. It's kind of weird hearing it in game. I'm going to be honest, the game is not very good. The voice acting is pretty bad, and the cutscenes follow suit and are also not great. There are a ton of characters to unlock, but unfortunately, they all play almost the same. Graphics are subpar, character models are not good, dull sound effects, and generic music. In my opinion, the only good part about the game is the amount of unlockables and the online co-op. But with Xbox Live for the original Xbox being discontinued in 2010, it makes the online co-op obsolete. And in my opinion, this game isn't really worth playing at all. This game's worth $112. If you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to hit that like button. Next up, we've got Def Jam Fight for New York. This is a hip-hop influenced side-by-side fighting game released in 2004. This was a sequel to the very well-received Def Jam Vendetta. This game has a ton of content, including 70 fighters, which include 40 celebrities, 30 licensed music tracks, 20 venues, and 10 different game modes. Also, all the celebrity fighters are voiced by their real-life counterparts. Some notable celebrities in the game are Snoop Dogg, Ludacris, Method Man, and Busta Rhymes. The graphics are solid, character models are detailed, and the cutscenes are great. A cool addition to the game is that at the end of each fight, there's a cutscene with the winning character, and you will see real-time injuries that were actually inflicted during the previous fight. Very cool. The story mode is also incredible. You start the game by rescuing D-Mob from being incarcerated. You then become part of his crew and get caught up in a turf war with the rival gang, who's led by Snoop Dogg.
Oh, one more thing. Any fighters here that want to make some real money, you best join up with me before it's too late. Thanks for the hospitality. See you soon.
The combination of fighting and wrestling, great graphics, good voice acting and cutscenes, and the amazing story makes this game a must-play. This game's worth $113. Next up, we've got Marvel vs. Capcom 2. This is a crossover 2D fighting game that was released in 2002. I'll start by saying that this game is known for being one of the best fighting games of all time, showing up on almost every single top 10 fighting game list. This game's a doozy. MVC2 is one of the most ambitious attempts to contend superheroes against video game characters. There are 55 characters in the game, and every single one is animated beautifully, controls are tight, and almost everything about this game is done right. Although most fans of the game prefer to play this on the Sega Dreamcast, the Xbox version still holds up. The only downside to this game is that there was no online multiplayer support outside of Japan. This was kind of upsetting because I'm sure many people would have wanted to test their skills online. This is twice as upsetting because the online multiplayer was actually promised prior to release, but was never implemented into the game. It's a really damn good game. There's not much else to say about it. This game's worth $153. Next up, we've got Teen Titans. This is an action/beat-em-up game that was released in 2006. The game's obviously based on the animated TV show Teen Titans, which consisted of the 5 DC characters, Beast Boy, Starfire, Robin, Cyborg, and Raven, and their adventures. In the story mode, the crew is transported into a video game that's being controlled by an unknown villain. The plot is kind of all over the place at times, but basically you're trying to make it to the final boss and get your crew out of the video game. The in-game characters even break the fourth wall a few times and talk directly to the TV screen. There are some cool mechanics in the game. You can switch the character you're controlling by simply pressing the D-pad, and you can rotate between all 5 crew members. They all have different abilities and special moves, and they're actually really well balanced. The sound is good, and the voice actors from the show provide the voices in-game, which is great. The Xbox version was released a full 6 months after the PS2 and GameCube versions, so some people were expecting upgraded graphics, but unfortunately, the game looked almost identical to the older versions. The gameplay can feel repetitive at times, but for young gamers and fans of the show Teen Titans, this is a solid pickup. This one's worth $176. Next up, we've got Futurama. This is a 3D platforming adventure game that was released in 2003. Another game based on a TV show. This one's based on Matt Groening's TV show, Futurama. The voice acting is amazing and includes all the voice actors from the TV show providing the voices in-game. Animation is great, especially the cutscenes, and the hilarious plot and antics that you get up to make you feel like you're watching a real episode.
Good news, everyone! I've sold Planet Express to Mom!
Throughout the game, you'll control 3 of the show's main characters. You'll start the game as Fry, the middle of the game you'll play as Bender, and the end of the game you'll play as Leela. All 3 characters have their own string of attacks and hilarious one-liners. If you're not a fan of the show, you may find the gameplay a bit clunky, with annoying camera glitches at times, and there is a ton of pointless collectibles. But if you enjoy the show, the game is definitely made as kind of a love letter to Futurama fans, and I think you'll really like this game. Again, as I said before, it plays out like a full episode. This game's worth $202. Next up, number 1, Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast. This is a racing game that was released in 2006. If you've played Outrun games before, then you'll know exactly what you're getting into with this game. A simple to learn, but hard to master arcade racing game. This game is fairly forgiving when it comes to bumping into other cars and hitting walls, which is really good for beginner gamers. The newest addition in Coast to Coast is the slipstream mechanic, which allows you to draft behind other cars and can increase your speed without using more power. Sounds like a great idea in theory, but the distance behind the front car needed in order to draft seems a little bit too big. The classic Outrun power slide remains and continues to be a huge part of the game. Unfortunately, there was no split-screen multiplayer available in-game, but you were able to play multiplayer online. Although the online popularity of the game wasn't massive, it was praised for its smooth and lag-free online experience. You can't go wrong if you're looking for a fun arcade racer. With a ton of awesome cars, Fast and the Furious style drifting, you can't go wrong. Although if you own its predecessor on the Xbox, Outrun 2, the gameplay is largely similar, so it may be hard to justify spending the big bucks on this game. This game's worth $258. And that's going to do it for the video. We hope you enjoyed the top 10 rarest and most expensive original Microsoft Xbox games. And don't forget to subscribe to Moonshine Gaming for lots of awesome video game content. We'll see you next time. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this one, you might like these.